All right, so Asana acquires StackAI. Let's get into this. So two MIT PhD students watched ChatGPT launch in 2022, and they made a bet. Enterprises would pay millions to connect AI to their actual business systems. 3 years later, they just sold their company to Asana for $75 million. This is the story of StackAI and why this acquisition might be the most important deal in the project management wars. All right, so let's dive into the two founders that sold their startup for $75 million to Asana. So Tony and Bernard were wrapping up their PhDs at MIT in 2022 when the AI boom hit. They weren't your typical startup founders. They were legitimate AI researchers who could have joined any lab in the world. Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, all would have hired them in a heartbeat. But they saw something bigger. Enterprises were drowning in AI hype, but had no way to actually use it. Companies wanted AI agents that could access Salesforce, read Slack messages, update Google Sheets, and trigger workflows across their entire stack without requiring a team of ML engineers. So they dropped out, joined Y Combinator's winter batch of 2023, and built StackAI in San Francisco. The vision was simple: Zapier for the AI agents era. No code required, just connect your systems and let AI do the work. So I have 2 points about this acquisition, right? So these two founders sold a company for $75 million to Asana. They were PhD students at MIT. My 2 points are: one, there's a constant issue that I see with startup founders where a lot of them just want to go through a struggle. A lot of them want a struggle story, as if the struggle story is going to make their startup or their exit that much more successful. And what do I mean by a struggle story? It seems like ever since Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of college to pursue Facebook, every other founder comes with the same script. Like, hey, I went to college and I was 2 weeks away from graduation, but I decided to drop out so I can start this company. Like, you can do two things at once. Especially with this AI era, I think it's more than possible. The the mindset or the idea that I think a lot of these founders have is that they want to show that they have a full source of commitment as well as delusion that they are able to accomplish something for their investors. They want to show their investors that, hey, I'm willing to drop everything for this one thing. You can do two things at once. Maybe you don't even need to raise capital, but you're pursuing your PhD, like dropping out of college to pursue a startup could work out in your favor. Or you can do something that's more promising, like get your PhD and join a company like Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, the ones that would pay you 400, 500, maybe even $1 million a year to join them as researchers. But that's just one of the things that I see happen a lot with these startup stories. Like, they all just want to go through a struggle for some reason. Now let's dive more into the actual product itself. So what is this company StackAI that got acquired by Asana for $75 million? So StackAI is a no-code platform that lets enterprise design, test, and deploy and govern custom AI agents. Think about your typical enterprise workflow. A customer submits a support ticket. It needs to be categorized, routed to the right team, checked against compliance rules, and logged in 3 different systems. Normally, that entire manual work or a mess of API integrations. With StackAI, you build an AI agent that handles all of it automatically. It connects to your Salesforce, Slack, Google Workspace, ERP platforms, CRMs, basically the entire enterprise software stack. Companies were using it for custom support routing, IT service requests, compliance checks, cross-functional operations. Anywhere you had a repetitive workflow that required intelligence, not just triggers, they raised about $20 million in total, including a $16 million Series A led by Gradient and Lobby VC, as well as a few other VC firms. They had angel investors like the CEO of Vercel, which is a pretty big signal that top tier operators saw a vision early. StackAI being acquired by Asana is pretty interesting, especially with what they actually offer. So the startup itself is AI agents for enterprise workflows. If anybody's familiar with workflows within the enterprise, or workflows in general, Zapier is literally the GOAT, right? Zapier is this product, this company that allows you to set up workflows to automate manual tasks. A good example of that is, let's say you get an email, you want the email to be notified to your Slack, and then you want your Slack to be able to DM a specific or a unique individual. You can set that all up with Zapier, right? Zapier is basically allowing you to be able to connect those connectors, establish that workflow, and get the job done. The reason why I'm saying this is an interesting acquisition of Asana is because why wouldn't Zapier want to acquire this instead? And the reason being is because this already exists in Zapier. Zapier can literally do exactly what StackAI does. So maybe this acquisition from Asana is more so of a competitive leverage that they're hoping to pursue to go against a different market, being Zapier. The market that Asana is in right now is project management. So their competitors are like Monday, Linear, Jira, or Atlassian. So this would be somewhat of a more interesting acquisition where they are kind of branching away from the project management space and going directly into the workflow space. And maybe that's the reason why they decided to acquire it, but what do I know? Now let's talk about the numbers, because the numbers for this acquisition doesn't really seem that favorable. These founders dropped out of college. When you look at these numbers, they probably should have stayed in college. All right, so the deal. The deal was officially undisclosed, but sources report that it's around a $75 million exit. That is 3.75 return on a $20 million raise. So it's not a unicorn exit. A unicorn exit is when you exit your company for more than $1 billion. This is far from that. But it is, in fact, a solid, decent outcome for a 3-year-old company in a brutally competitive space. For context, they were competing against Zapier, OpenAI's enterprise products, Anthropic's cloud for work, and a dozen other workflow automation tools. The fact that Asana paid this much shows how desperate they were for this capability. Asana stock has dropped over 50% since ChatGPT launched. The market feared that they'd be commoditized by AI native tools. This acquisition is somewhat of a counterpunch to that. I know I mentioned earlier that this acquisition didn't really make sense for Asana because Asana is in the project management space. But when you really look at what happened to Asana since the AI era has developed and has matured, their stock price dropping over 50% since the launch of ChatGPT is concerning. They have to find different horizontals to be able to compete against. Right now, the project management space is not looking too good. There's too much competition. Monday.com, Linear, like I mentioned. So definitely seeing this acquisition take place and just looking at the numbers and seeing how their stock was affected, it makes sense for them to want to go towards a different horizontal. And when I'm saying horizontal, I'm meaning a different industry, right? So the workflow enterprise industry is what they're looking to kind of compete against or get involved with the hopes of, I guess, shooting up their stock price and showing that they can do more than just project management, that they can offer different things for enterprises. All right, so why now? That's the real question. Why did Asana acquire this company for $75 million? So Asana timed this announcement with their earnings call for maximum impact. The message was clear. We're not a legacy task manager. We're the operating system for human agent teams. Asana already had AI Studio, their in-house AI product, but it was limited. Most summarizations and suggestions was what it offered. StackAI gives them the agentic execution layer, the ability to actually run complex workflows across enterprises and enterprise systems. This puts pressure on Monday.com, Notion, who are still mostly human-focused collaboration tools. It also challenges Zapier in the enterprise segment because StackAI is now backed by a publicly traded company with deep pockets and enterprise relationships. OpenAI and Anthropic were indirect competitors to StackAI for enterprise workflow dollars, but now Asana can pick the best underlying models rather than being locked into our one vendor. One thing you'll know about these acquisitions is that it all happens within a specific time period. Here's a great example of that. You have Asana acquiring this company, but making it publicly known about this acquisition right before the earnings call. It's definitely one of those market plays that you hear so often about, where they try to do their best to make their current stock price be favorable based off of some business decisions that they might have made the day of or over the week before. All right, so what is next? So Tony and Bernard, the founders of StackAI, will likely go on through a earnout period, integrating StackAI into Asana product suites. The team gets liquidity, Asana gets AI credibility, and the market gets a glimpse of what the next generation of work software looks like. All right, and now we're towards the end of the video where I give my 2 cents sort of what I assume might happen in the future based off this acquisition or some acquisition that might happen um, in the future. So Asana acquiring StackAI. This definitely gives them the authority to say that they are now a workflow AI first company, not just a project management company. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of the competitors like Atlassian is an Australian company that's also publicly traded. A lot of you guys know Atlassian for the product offering, which is Jira. Jira is a direct competitor to Asana. So I wouldn't be surprised if Atlassian did something similar to this, where they are looking to be able to be more involved within the workflow space for their enterprise customers. So if we're talking enterprise customers, Asana versus Atlassian, their logos that Atlassian has is pretty impressive compared to Asana. So maybe this might be one of the things that a competitor like Asana and Allison pick up on. And they say, hey, Asana is making a move to get more involved within the workflow space. Why not us? Why don't we do the same thing? So future acquisition, Allison might do the same thing and follow suit with AI acquisitions. It might not be related to workflows, but I definitely see it happening. All right, folks, if you haven't done so already, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. I appreciate you guys watching these videos. I try to give you the most latest acquisitions that happen throughout the day, not just the week. This is an interesting one. Not that dramatic compared to the ones that we did earlier this week and even last week. This is a pretty small acquisition, $75 million, $20 million raised. So nothing that's really going to catch the headlines, but we always want to share what's going on. If it's big or large, things like this can really help for those that are individual investors, day traders, be able to know what's going to happen for a company that they might be backing and what the future of that company looks like and what the executives are planning on doing to the company based off of acquisitions. So here's a great example of that. I hope you guys appreciate it. Make sure to add your comments down below. Peace.